Okay, so back to it. Let's look at the report, which is the health effects of voluntary exposure to cold water, a continuing subject of debate. And scrolling down to beyond where I finished last time, and we get to start to talk about the suggested health benefits. So, popular literature claims that you're going to get a boost to the immune system, it's going to treat depression, enhance peripheral circulation, increase libido, burn calories, and reduce stress. And the cautionary note of the report is that these proclaimed health benefits are subjective, which means that they're based on people's opinions and anecdotal, meaning that there are kind of individual success stories. I guess what it's saying is that there's not, they're just emphasizing that this is not based on medical research. But there is research, and so some of the scientific insight on cold exposure suggests that it has some success in treating chronic autoimmune inflammation. This is a big one. Reduce hypercholesterolemia by brown adipose tissue activation. Positive effect on stress regulation. But this is the really interesting part that I think many biohackers tend to ignore. That there's a lot of complexity when we're looking at health benefits, and the suggestion here is it's not actually necessarily the cold water exposure that's singularly responsible for these health factors, because you've got to take into account as well the participants in the study. So the people that were being studied, typically there's a lot of kind of, it focuses on athletes, that kind of thing. How much training have they undertaken to be able to handle stress? I mean, this is a massive part of my journey, and my cold water practice is around the way that I've trained my body to deal with the stress of the situation. For sure, when you do cold plunging in a community, there's a lot of social interaction going on there, which wouldn't, and it's a very high quality social interaction. I always feel that when you share a deep experience with others, it has a very bonding effect, and obviously a very positive effect. So we have to take that into account. And yeah, quite often we do cold plunge work in a very beautiful natural surroundings, and people that are interested in cold plunging, not necessarily, but quite often will have healthy food intakes and work to develop a positive mindset. I mean, this is massive. Mindset is everything, so far as I'm concerned. I think it's a critical component in working with cold water, especially on a daily basis. And it's not emphasized enough in the really short term offerings that a lot of that are presented to people. This is something that takes a time and effort and a discipline to build these mindsets. It's not an overnight process, it's an over time process. So the popular press, the hype, there's been an upsurge in recent years. I think we can all kind of agree on that. So it's just highlighting that the medical research is not kind of kept up with the hype cycle. Doesn't surprise me in a way. I mean, the absence of medical research doesn't necessarily mean that the benefits aren't there, but it does leave a question mark, because medical research, for all its flaws and faults, is at some level a very simple process where we set a theory and we test that theory and we determine whether or not the result was what we expected, and it can either validate or invalidate the results. Then goes into quite a boring section, which is about how it's actually completed the study. So it's gone on to a couple of the really popular kind of research paper systems, and it talks about how it's generated the queries to bring up the the various studies that have been part of this paper, looked at as part of this paper. So they employed some exclusion criteria, narrowed it down, and ended up with 104 studies, determined 104 studies were relevant for the review. And then it's going to go into a brief kind of discussion around how humans deal with the cold. And I'll leave it there and we'll pick that up next time.